Hi, guys. I've been reading a great article today by Patrick McKenzie, also known as Patio 11, who he's sort of a hero to a lot of the micro independent software vendors, also known as MicroISVs, uh, because he's made multiple small software businesses that were successful and, basically, fed his family, did his whole thing just with a few small little software businesses, coming out of Tokyo, Japan. And he's always had some very insightful posts on Hacker News and on his own blog and sort of that sort of thing. So he joined Stripe 4 years ago, and he got some very interesting insights that it's. I've known about a lot of these things for a long time, and it's sort of surprising to me that people haven't figured this out. And a lot of it has to do with probably just the lack of economic knowledge that most people are prepared with. They don't do any kind of education on economics of any important way in school.
Well, right, and whatever economics education does get given in your, say, college
Yeah, it's
education
voodoo.
is, well, it's not necessarily voodoo, but it's econometrics.
Yeah.
And though econometrics has a certain place, it's also very limited as to its predictive ability.
Well,
It can tell you what the current situation, what the scenario is, but it isn't very good at explaining why the current scenario is what it is.
Yeah, it's macro is usually a good picture, but the micro sort of lacks explanatory force, and there's a lot of different frameworks you can look at to actually figure out how things actually work in the micro, and that's sort of one of the things we've focused here on the podcast here is sort of the micro reasons why do things actually work. A lot of it's like it's all in your head, that sort of thing. So the first thing he mentions here is that he was very happy with being able to work on a wide variety of things and sort of be a very generalist and wear a bunch of different hats, but that sort of made him very illegible what he was doing to management. And that's a big problem I've encountered myself before. Whenever you're doing that sort of all hats thing, it's very hard to toot your own horn in that regard because even though you're delivering humongous value for the company by basically saying, okay, we need this now. This is my highest value way I can apply myself. I'm just going to jump in, but necessarily when you are changing modes all the time, management necessarily can't know how to deal with that.
Well, how do you
They
write
don't know how to measure that.
How exactly do you write a job requirement for that so that you can, at performance evaluation time or something like that, how exactly can you evaluate that? As a manager, you're like,
Yeah, and legibility is sort of the core problem in both political science and in management science. And the problem described is essentially this: the more legible a process is, the less efficient it is, because it's sort of like I wouldn't say it's a quantum effect, but it's similar in the regard that when you observe a process, you change it. Okay.
well, but more importantly, it's about the creative ability that is stifled by that sort of straitjacket that you put on to the employee with those types of responsibilities that are expected of them. Now,
Yeah,
just like with a automation script, like say an automated test, something like that, it has zero creativity. It's just going to go along the script. It's going to do that, and it's going to only do that. The more requirements you put on a job, the more you're literally scripting their job. You're automating their actual tasks. You're putting on a checklist to them, which, I mean, hey, a couple of videos ago, checklists are great. But at the same time,
if you want a creative work to happen, that's the opposite.
That's the opposite, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
It stifles the creativity because you don't have to engage your brain. Now, there's very good reasons to not engage your brain in certain contexts, especially as it regards decision making. The less decisions you have to make in a day, whenever you do have to make a decision,
the better decisions
you make because you're not already like fatigued from having to make all these decisions.
Yeah, and legibility is not a bad thing. You need information to make good decisions, but the question is, how much information do you need to make good enough decisions? Because if you have too much metrics, if you have too much monitoring harnesses in place, and it's just a thicket of sort of restrictions to get things done, it's going to be, you'll perfectly know what's going on, but what's going on is not going to be of particular importance.
Well, and how diversified and how specialized are your employees at the tasks that they're doing, and how many employees do you have specialized at that, or do you have several unspecialized employees? Because you can have a basically your factory, so to speak, your assembly line, so to speak, whatever the heck it is that is assembling your product and getting it ready for sale, that sort of thing, whether it means developers, QA, whatever the heck, if it's all a very structured process where you've got one guy does A, one guy does B, one guy does C, then yeah, okay, specialize away and make it as legible as possible. You don't really even need that much creativity for that because you've already specified the plan. But whenever you have, like, say, a very agile type of process where you need to change on the fly, it's not really gonna work,
Yeah, and the other thing that I sort of liked about his article here is how he leveraged the whole. I was a customer of Stripe for many years. I'm not just part of the hair club for men.
I'm also the president.
Yeah, exactly. It's not quite that, but it's very similar with regard to he like had a Vulcan mind meld with all of the customers, like pretty much instantaneously, and the product he was working on, Atlas, pretty much required you to have your finger right on the pulse of these guys to know how things were working. Anyways, the sort of next thing that he talked about was what happens to companies when they really start to grow. Okay, so I've been at companies that have flatlined. I've been at companies that have been in active decline, and I've been at companies that have actually grown a lot. TI, while I was there, the calculator division was definitely in active decline. The hail strike as a firm was pretty much a flat line and still is. And cPanel has gone through incredible growth over the last few years, and I don't see any signs of that changing anytime soon. So certainly, it wasn't hypergrowth like he describes here at Stripe, where it's gone from it was maybe like 600 people to now it's like 3,000, and they want to be at 6,000. That is truly mind-boggling. The idea that you can ever have any kind of unitary culture with that much new blood sort of being injected in, it's practically an impossible task. And he's certainly like, I think that the company itself, wider, has as a result become much less legible, and I think that the only reason the magic really works at that company is because it has a bunch of people like Patrick McKenzie who are already like, look, it's ambition of who you hire that matters.
Yeah.
It's are they go-getters? Do they care about the mission? Do they, in Stripe's case, it's, helping small business and medium-sized business and now even large business make real money, and do it without having to worry about a bunch of BS, and having that buy-in, having that emotional investment as part of the employees, that's really the key. You can't have checked out people at any organization that's actually growing really fast, or the culture becomes toxic very quickly.
Right, which means your management is they've figured out a proper strategy for both attracting the type of talent they want, detecting that this is the type of talent they want, and third, retaining that type of talent that they want, which is like, in the corporate level, that's like 10 out of 10 gorilla pimp,
Yeah, almost never, nobody ever actually executes all three.
Yeah.
Usually, in fact, the most common problem is just, being unable to retain talent. But aside from that, it's like being able to attract talent that really believes in the mission is also pretty tough. I mean, people are pretty jaded out there for a variety of good reasons and so forth. So a lot of that has to do with what motivates employees now. And the vast majority of people, they want to feel like they're part of something that's actually important. And if you can't communicate that to where people are not just coming to you from like a recruiter or something. No, they say, I want to work for this firm because this firm has it going on. I want to strap myself to this rocket to the moon. I don't care, come hell or high water, I'm going to work for these people because I want to.
Yeah. Otherwise, the only thing that you really have in your equation, in your toolbox as a manager there, is how do I actually make this to where it makes your star rise? You have to then appeal to their own sense of, I guess you could say, self-interest or greed, however you want to frame that, where working for you is going to make you a better person. It's going to make you the higher earner. It's going to advance your career, that sort of thing, and in a plausible way, not just as a platitude. Oh, it'll be a great feather in your cap for your career. Yeah. Don't give me that crap. Do you have some sort of training that's going to help me? Do you have some sort of, X, Y, and Z? There are people that are going to mentor me. What's the salary? That sort of thing. You have to focus on those sorts of areas.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that McKinsey actually was like, this was something new to me, because as an entrepreneur for a very long time, I had never thought of, well, where do you think your career is going, right? And that's what his manager was like, actually, I need to ask, Patrick, where does he think his career is going? And he's like, oh, I figured I was just going to make some more businesses, whatever, man, And he's like, now that I actually kind of had to think about it, it's like, I actually like this firm, and I kind of want to help people, do the kind of stuff that I was doing, And so that sort of gives you that, why do people work like him that are very talented? Why do they choose to stay at a firm? It's because they believe in it, man.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
For better or worse, it's like, I worked at cPanel for nearly 8 years. Why did I do it? Because I actually believed in the mission. I think that, this whole idea of helping people put websites, up, it's a good thing to do. It's not hard to get the mission,
Much of the internet revolution was powered by shared hosting. So
it's not, it doesn't take a genius to figure out where this fits in the, am I doing God's work or not, sort of equation, right?
Yeah.
And so the other next thing he sort of talks about is sort of how the Silicon Valley culture has sort of become this Cambrian explosion around the world, and how it's not just in Silicon Valley anymore. It's all over the country. It's all over the world.
Right.
And I think that is probably some of the magic with regard to how the company is actually able to scale, is because they've recognized this and they've decided, oh, wait, this mindset is everywhere.
Yeah, we can target people with that mindset because they're hungry for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's like, I'm happy to be an accelerant for this change, because that's sort of how these large firms that embrace these sort of cultural changes, that's what they actually are. They really do move those markets,
Right. And in that sense, for person that's really dedicated to the cause, it's like they're fighting on a great crusade for, this cultural shift, this whatever it is, to dominate, that sort of thing. And especially for like a male, that's a huge, like, we're conquering the world, baby, kind of thing. It's a huge kind of dopamine hit, that sort of thing, whenever you get those types of feelings.
Yeah. Anyways, the sort of next things that he talks about are the things that were different, working for people rather than being a small businessman. And most of those are pretty obvious ones. The one that surprised me with regard to, lack of understanding about economics was sort of like, he was going over how the business model actually works, between B2C, business to customer, or business to business software. And he sort of realized that it's not actually one layer deep, that it's actually like your business scales not just because your customers do well, but because their customers do well.
Exactly.
And that's when you start to realize, oh, wait, it's actually Bone Bovrik's structure of production. It turns out that iPencil is actually how everything works. That it turns out, it's turtles all the way down, baby.
Well, that production of goods and services in society are not actually that different than you would think, especially as it concerns the digital marketplace. So let's say it's software, like I was saying. You're constructing a factory that just shifts bits around and around and around to do something. Much like in, say, what Bone Bovrik would have pointed out in the structure of production, how you have to have this thing here, you have to have this mine here, you have to have this factory here, you have to have these guys working over here that, make coffee for the people on the factory line for everything to work. So, but without one little component in that chain that can even be several links apart, that, like the factory, they don't even know that it exists or even care that it exists. But that without that link in the chain, the factory literally couldn't exist.
Yeah.
It's,
you would get production stoppages the whole way through that could even cause catastrophic failures just because you miss one widget. That's it.
Right. And I mean, this can even be like political landscape reshaping things or like societally collapsing things. Like whenever there are oil shortages, that
everything grinds to a halt.
Yeah. That sort of thing. But that's more. In some ways, that's a more stark version of what that sort of thing means. But it's definitely a very good example of that.
Yeah. And I think the thing that was also surprising to me was his sort of being full frontal exposed to how clout actually works. And that was, he was sort of like, I thought I'd built a pretty dang good brand for myself here online, man. I'm Patio 11, yeah. But
yeah, except you only post like once a year on your blog, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's not a good way to get search authority there. But yeah, he found out that a lot of these doors that he'd been trying to get into for years, all it took was saying, I work at Stripe, because they're a multi-billion-dollar company.
Right.
And it's like, so how does that actually happen? Well, I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that when you work for a firm, part of the deal that's implicit and not talked about is that you are sacrificing your brand for their brand. Okay.
Yep.
Why is it that Big Corp has so much clout? Because you're not taking your clout for yourself. You're giving it to them, and I think most people just like pervasively underprice their clout. Okay. Which I think Patio 11 probably isn't. He's probably being paid a commensurate to his clout.
Well, yes, but that kind of goes along with why a lot of developers are severely underpaid as well.
Yeah, it's just they don't understand that, building your clout is going to be a lot more valuable to you than actually building your skills after you have some, I know how to do it level,
Well, once you've reached mastery, where do you go from there, right?
Yeah, then you do have to actually build influence. There's no choice.
Because you can be a master all that you want and that sort of thing, but if nobody else knows that you're a master, who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're just a tree falling in the forest at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown of the article. This was a lot of fun for me. I'll probably be doing some more videos along the vein of things that people overlook in business, especially with regards to economics here pretty soon. So you can look forward to that, and hit the like and subscribe button. Please donate if you like the videos, and we'll see you next time.